Angela doesn't have a clue. That is what my husband said. Not to me, to the woman he was planning to marry, while he was still married to me. But here is what destroyed me. It was not a stranger's voice that laughed and said, "Good, so she will not ruin our wedding." It was my best friend's voice, my college roommate, the woman I called sister for 15 years. I was folding laundry on a Saturday morning when his phone accidentally called mine. He forgot to end the call. And in the next 6 minutes, I heard everything. The secret beach wedding, the guest list, the wedding planner, the dress she already tried on. And then, my blood went cold. He said, "And the ring? The one from her jewelry box? My grandmother's ring. The one she placed in my hands on her deathbed and whispered, 'This is for the woman you become, not the man you marry.'" He gave it to my best friend like it was nothing. But that was not even the worst part. What I discovered next, the 3-year secret, the stolen money, the forged medical records designed to have me declared insane, was so much darker than a phone call. I did not cry that day. I did not scream. I did not confront him. I started planning. And what happened at that wedding? They never saw it coming. Lesson and value statement. This story carries a message every woman needs to hear. Your instincts are not paranoia. Your boundaries are not selfishness. And your silence, when used with wisdom, is the most powerful weapon you will ever hold. This is a story about betrayal. But more importantly, it is a story about a woman who refused to let someone else's choices become her identity. If this story already has your heart racing, go ahead and hit that like button right now so more women can hear this message. Drop a comment and tell me, would you have answered that phone call the same way Angela did? Subscribe and turn on notifications because the stories on this channel are not just entertainment. They are lessons wrapped in drama that might just change how you see your own life. Now, please sit back and relax as we dive fully into this truly remarkable story. Angela doesn't have a clue. That is what my husband said, not to me, to the woman he was planning to marry while he was still married to me. But the worst part was not a stranger's voice that laughed and said, "Good, so she will not ruin our wedding." It was my best friend's voice. I sat on my hallway floor, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the two people I trusted most in the world plan a life that erased me from existence. And the very worst part, worse than the betrayal, worse than the lies, was what Julian said next. He said, "And the ring, the one from her jewelry box?" My grandmother's ring. The one she placed in my hands on her deathbed and whispered, "This is for the woman you become, not the man you marry." Julian gave it to my best friend like it was a party favor. I did not cry that day. I did not scream. I did not throw things. I started planning. And what happened next? They never saw it coming. But honestly, neither did I. Because the truth was so much worse than a phone call. Please sit back and relax as we dive into this truly remarkable story. Saturday mornings in Angela Morrison's house were sacred. Not in the religious sense, but in the way only 12 years of marriage can make a routine feel like a ritual. The washing machine hummed its final cycle. Fresh linen scent drifted through the hallway. Angela folded the last towel with the quiet satisfaction of a woman who believed her life was exactly where it was supposed to be. Their home sat in one of Atlanta's most beautiful suburbs, a $2.3 million property that Angela had designed herself. Every room, every corner, every carefully chosen light fixture, the living room where Julian had proposed on a rainy Tuesday night, the kitchen island where they had slow danced at 2 a.m. after closing on his first big real estate deal, the bedroom where they had whispered about the children they would one day have. 14 years ago, Angela met Julian Morrison at a charity gala. She was a struggling interior design student, working part-time as a waitress at the event. He was a junior real estate agent with a borrowed suit and a dream so big it barely fit in the room. He had walked up to her and said, "You designed this table arrangement, didn't you?" She had blinked. "How did you know?" "Because everything else in this room looks rented," he had replied. "But this table looks loved." She had fallen for him that night. Not for his charm, though he had plenty, for the way he noticed things, for the way he saw her. They built everything together. Angela's grandmother, Mama Ruth's mother, had believed in Julian enough to lend him $200,000, her entire life savings, to start Morrison Development Group. That money became the foundation of an empire. Angela designed the model homes that won architectural awards. Julian closed the deals that made them rich. They were Atlanta's golden couple. Magazine features, charity boards, the life everyone envied from the outside. But lately, small cracks had appeared. Julian worked late 3, sometimes 4 nights a week. He came home smelling different, not like another woman exactly, but like a different world. His phone was always face down on the table. He smiled at her the same way, kissed her the same way, said "I love you" at the same predictable moments, but something behind his eyes had shifted, like a painting that looked identical but had been hung 2 inches to the left. Angela noticed. Of course she noticed, but she talked herself out of suspicion because that is what trusting people do. They give the people they love the benefit of every doubt, even when the doubts are screaming. That Saturday morning, Julian had called around 9. His voice was rushed, the way it always sounded when business was pressing. "Hey babe, heading into a meeting. Might not be reachable for a few hours. Love you." "Love you too," she had replied, smiling at the phone before placing it on the kitchen counter. 20 minutes later, his name lit up the screen again. She answered automatically, tucking the phone between her ear and shoulder while reaching for another towel. "Hey, did you forget something?" No reply. She pulled the phone away, frowning, then pressed it back to her ear. She could hear movement, background noise, voices, a woman's soft laugh. Angela almost hung up. Pocket dial. It happened. Julian probably sat on his phone during the meeting. She was about to end the call when something in Julian's tone made her freeze completely. It was relaxed, playful, intimate, warm in a way she had not heard directed at her in months, maybe longer. "We cannot invite too many people," the woman said. "I want it small, elegant." Angela's fingers tightened around the phone. Her pulse began to thud in her ears. "Exactly," Julian replied. "No drama, just us and the people who matter." The people who matter. The words echoed strangely, as if they had been spoken underwater. Angela stepped into the hallway, as if distance from the laundry room might make the sound clearer, might rearrange the words into something harmless. "I spoke to the planner," the woman continued. "She said the beach venue is available that weekend." Julian chuckled. "Perfect. And do not worry about the cost. Once everything is finalized, money will not be an issue." Angela's throat went dry. Beach venue, planner, finalized. Her mind tried desperately to rearrange the words into something innocent. A corporate event? A client celebration? Anything. But then the woman said, almost teasing, "Are you sure she suspects nothing?" And Julian did not hesitate, not even for a second. Angela does not have a clue. The world tilted. Angela leaned against the wall, knees buckling. She pressed her free hand flat against the cool surface to stop herself from sliding to the floor. The woman's voice lowered, turning soft and conspiratorial. "I tried on dresses today. I wish you had been there." Julian's tone changed then. It softened in a way that felt like a knife sliding slowly under Angela's ribs. You will be the most beautiful bride I have ever seen. Bride. Angela pressed her palm over her mouth to catch the sound that nearly escaped. 12 years of marriage flashed through her mind in jagged, broken pieces. The first apartment, the late nights building the business, the quiet dinners, the shared jokes, the way he used to hold her face in both hands and say, "You are my whole world." Lies. All of it. Or maybe not all of it, which was somehow worse, because it meant the love had been real once, and he had chosen to kill it. Then came the financial confession. "I have already begun moving funds around," Julian said casually, as if discussing dinner plans. "By the time anyone realizes, we will be gone. Anyone. Not her, not Angela. Anyone." She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the hallway floor, the cold tile grounding her as her heart hammered so violently she could feel it in her teeth, but the absolute worst was still coming. "Do not feel guilty, Lydia," Julian said. The name hit like a physical strike. Angela's eyes flew open. Lydia. Not a stranger. Not some woman from a bar or a business trip. Lydia Chambers, her college roommate, her best friend of 15 years, the woman who had cried on Angela's shoulder after every breakup, the woman who had stood beside her at her wedding and sobbed happy tears into a bouquet of white roses. The woman Angela had personally recommended for a consulting position at Julian's company just 8 months ago. Memories rearranged themselves with cruel clarity. Lydia's sudden new wardrobe, the late dinners she mentioned casually, the way she had admired Angela's grandmother's ring last month, turning Angela's hand to catch the light. "Oh my God. Angela, this is stunning. Where did your grandmother get it?" And now Julian's voice, casual and confident, and the ring, the one from her jewelry box. Angela stared at the opposite wall. Her vision blurred, then sharpened. She could see every crack in the paint, every shadow, every imperfection she had never noticed before. Strange how betrayal makes you see everything more clearly. The call continued. Their voices wove dreams of a future that had erased her completely. Angela listened to every word, every detail, committing it all to memory. When the conversation finally drifted to small talk, she lowered the phone slowly and stared ahead. Her old life had ended in the quiet hum of a forgotten call. She did not know yet what her new life would look like. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would not be the one left ruined. Angela remained on that hallway floor for 20 minutes after the call ended. She allowed herself to feel every ounce of it. The disbelief, the rage, the grief. She cried, and not delicately. These were ugly, heaving sobs that she muffled with a towel so the neighbors would not hear. Her body shook. Her chest ached. Snot and tears mixed on her face, and she did not care. She gave herself 20 minutes of complete collapse. And then she stopped. She stood up, walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on her face, looked in the mirror. The woman staring back looked different. Same face, same brown eyes, same tiny scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood fall. But something behind those eyes had changed. Something had hardened, not into cruelty, into clarity. She walked to the kitchen, put the kettle on, sat at the dining table with her laptop. Her hands shook so badly she could barely type. She misspelled Julian's name 3 times. She had to stop twice to breathe through waves of nausea that came in like ocean swells. At one point, she walked to the bedroom, saw their wedding photo on the nightstand, Julian's arm around her, both of them laughing, and had to sit on the edge of the bed for 5 minutes just to stop the room from spinning. But she did not stop. She picked up her phone and called the one person in the world she trusted completely. Mama Ruth answered on the second ring, Her mother's voice was warm, the thick southern tone that had been Angela's anchor her entire life. "Hey, baby girl, how is my favorite daughter today?" "Mama," Angela said. Her voice cracked on the single word, silence. Mama Ruth could read a storm in a syllable. "Angela, what happened?" And Angela told her everything: the call, the wedding plans, the money, the ring, and the name, Lydia. A long, terrible silence followed. Then Mama Ruth spoke, and her voice was shaking, not with sadness, but with a fury so deep it sounded almost holy. "Baby, I'm going to need you to say that again, because I know you did not just tell me that the woman I fed my peach cobbler to at Thanksgiving is sleeping with your husband." "Mama," Angela started, "the audacity. I used the good vanilla in that cobbler. The Madagascar vanilla, Angela. I drove 45 minutes to that specialty store for that vanilla. That woman ate my Madagascar vanilla cobbler and then went and stole your husband. Lord Jesus, give me strength because the devil is testing me today." Despite everything, Angela almost laughed. That was Mama Ruth's gift. She could find the absurdity in the apocalypse. She could make the unbearable slightly bearable without diminishing it. But then Mama Ruth's voice changed. The humor drained away and left behind something made of iron. "Angela Marie Morrison, you listen to me. Your grandmother, God rest her soul, did not survive Jim Crow, raise 6 children, and build a life from nothing so that her granddaughter could be erased by a man with a good jawline and no conscience. You hear me?" "Yes, ma'am. Good. Now here's what you are going to do. You are going to call a lawyer. The meanest, most expensive lawyer in Atlanta. And you are not going to let that man see you cry. You cry with me. You cry with God. But with him, you are steel. You understand?" "Yes, ma'am." Angela hung up and sat in silence for a moment, her mother's words settling into her bones. Looking back, she realized something important. She had confused loyalty with blindness for years. There is a difference between trusting your partner and ignoring your instincts. Your gut does not lie, it just whispers. And most of us are too afraid to listen because the truth might cost us the life we built. But the truth was already there. She had just chosen not to hear it. Monday morning arrived bright and ordinary. Angela dressed carefully, applied light makeup to cover the evidence of sleepless hours, and met Julian at breakfast with a warm smile. "Busy week ahead," Julian said, kissing her forehead as he grabbed his keys. "Do not wait up tonight." "I will not," she replied gently. He left, believing his performance was flawless. The moment the door closed, Angela picked up her bag and drove downtown to the office of Mrs. Evelyn Cross, one of the most feared divorce attorneys in the state of Georgia. They called her the Closer. She had never lost a case. Mrs. Cross was a small woman with silver hair and reading glasses that she used more as a weapon than a visual aid. She peered over them the way a surgeon peers over a scalpel. She listened to Angela's entire account without interruption, her pen making quiet scratches on a legal pad. When Angela finished, Mrs. Cross removed her glasses and set them on the desk. "This is premeditated fraud and attempted bigamy," she said. Her voice was calm, almost clinical. "You did the right thing coming early. Most women sit in that chair after the money is already gone, and the husband is on a beach somewhere, pretending to be single. You are ahead of the curve, Mrs. Morrison. I do not want drama," Angela said. "I want protection." "Then we move quietly," Mrs. Cross replied. "The loudest weapon in divorce is silence." Over the next hour, a battle plan was assembled. Document everything. Screenshot financial records. Freeze suspicious transactions discreetly through legal channels. File preliminary legal notices that would remain sealed until activated. Hire a licensed private investigator to build a physical evidence trail. Angela signed papers with steady hands and drove home, feeling something she had not expected. Not hope exactly, direction. The fear was still there, coiled tight in her stomach, but now it had somewhere to go. That evening, she began the hardest performance of her life, playing normal. She cooked Julian's favorite meal, grilled salmon, roasted asparagus, the garlic butter rice he loved. She asked about his day and listened as he fabricated details with a confidence that she now recognized as practiced. She laughed at his jokes. She kissed him goodnight, and when he fell asleep, she lay beside him in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the full weight of pretending. Playing normal, while your world is on fire, is its own kind of torture. Every smile felt like swallowing glass. Every "I love you" felt like a confession she was being forced to make at gunpoint, but she did it. Because emotion would make her reckless, and reckless would make her poor. The investigator, a man named Derek Hale, was former FBI. He did not smile when they met. He did not offer pleasantries. He simply opened a notebook and said, "Tell me what you need. I need timelines," Angela replied. "Locations, proof of meetings, financial trails, everything." Derek nodded once. "You will have it." Within days, photos began arriving in a secure digital folder. Julian and Lydia entering a wedding planner's office in Buckhead. Julian test driving a car she had never seen, a silver convertible clearly not chosen for a married father. Hotel bookings under a name Angela did not recognize. Lydia trying on wedding dresses at a boutique in Midtown. Angela organized every piece of evidence methodically, creating folders and subfolders the way she organized design projects. Financial, legal, personal property, communications, each item placed with care, control replacing chaos. One afternoon, she met Lydia for lunch. This was the meeting she had dreaded most. Lydia arrived glowing. New highlights, new dress. A confidence that Angela now understood had a name and a source. They sat at their usual table at the bistro near Peachtree Street. "Girl, you look amazing," Lydia said, reaching across to squeeze Angela's hand. "We need to do this more often." Angela smiled warmly. "I know. I miss you." Then she noticed it. The ring. Her grandmother's ring. Sitting on Lydia's right hand, catching the sunlight. Lydia followed her gaze and pulled her hand back casually. "Oh, this? Just something I bought for myself. Retail therapy, you know." Angela held the smile like holding a live grenade. "It suits you," she said. That lunch was the hardest performance of Angela's entire life. She sat across from the woman who was planning to marry her husband, wearing her dead grandmother's ring, and she smiled. She ate her salad. She asked about Lydia's weekend. She laughed at Lydia's stories. And inside, she was screaming so loudly she thought the windows would shatter, but she survived it. She survived it because Mama Ruth's words played on a loop in her head. With him, you are steel. With her, she decided, she was steel too. By the end of the second week, Angela's case was building beautifully. Evidence was airtight. Her lawyer was confident. Julian suspected nothing. The investigator had documented 12 separate meetings between Julian and Lydia, including 3 visits to a wedding venue near Savannah. Angela allowed herself, for the first time, a small breath of relief. "I have got him," she thought one evening, watching Julian sleep beside her, his face relaxed and innocent in a way that now disgusted her. "It is over. I just need to pick the moment." She was so sure the hardest part was behind her. She was wrong. The discovery happened on a Tuesday at 11:30 at night, while Julian snored softly in their bed. Angela had developed a habit of reviewing financial records in the quiet hours. Her laptop balanced on her knees, She scrolled through bank statements and corporate filings with the methodical focus of someone building a case brick by brick. She had become fluent in the language of money, reading transaction histories the way she once read floor plans. That night, she found something that made her blood run cold. Behind the joint accounts she already knew about, behind the transfers she had already documented, there was a second layer. Hidden accounts that were not joint. Accounts funneled through offshore shell companies with names that sounded like furniture brands. Accounts that traced back not months, but years. Angela sat perfectly still, screen glowing in the dark bedroom, and felt the ground dissolve beneath her again. Julian had not started siphoning money when the affair began. He had been doing it for 3 years. 3 years of carefully moving funds from Morrison Development Group, the company built with her grandmother's $200,000 investment, into entities she had never heard of. This was not an affair that spiraled out of control. This was an exit strategy. Planned, layered, and executed with the same precision Julian used to close real estate deals. The total, as far as Angela could trace, was at least $1.4 million. Maybe more. She closed the laptop very slowly. Her hands had stopped shaking days ago, but they were shaking now. She called Mrs. Cross at 7 the next morning. "It is worse than we thought," Angela said, and she heard her own voice crack for the first time since the initial phone call. "He has been stealing from the company, from my family's money, for years." Mrs. Cross was quiet for 3 full seconds. For a woman who charged $600 an hour, silence was expensive. Then she asked the only question that mattered. "How much?" Angela's voice was small. "At least 1.4 million that I can trace. Maybe more." More silence. Then, "We need a forensic accountant. Today." That night, Angela broke. Not the controlled emotional release of the first discovery. This was deeper. This was the kind of crying that makes your ribs feel bruised, that leaves you gasping on the bathroom floor at midnight with the shower running so no one can hear. Because it was not just money. It was her grandmother's money. Her grandmother, who had picked cotton as a child. Her grandmother, who had worked 3 jobs simultaneously so her children could go to school. Her grandmother, who had pressed $200,000 into Julian's hands and said, "I am trusting you with my family's future, young man. Do not make me regret it." And for 3 years, Julian had looked Angela in the eye, kissed her good morning, said "I love you" over dinner, and systematically stolen her grandmother's legacy. She called Mama Ruth. It was past midnight. "Baby girl?" Mama Ruth answered immediately. Voice alert. Mothers never truly sleep when their children are hurting. 3 years, Mama," Angela sobbed. "He looked me in the eye for 3 years, and he was stealing everything. Grandma's money, Mama. Her money." Mama Ruth was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice shook with a fury so profound it sounded like prayer. "You listen to me, Angela. That money was your grandmother's blood." Her hands worked fields so her granddaughter could have choices. And that man used it to buy his mistress a wedding dress and a beach vacation. Angela pressed her forehead against the cold tile floor. Then Mama Ruth's tone shifted. Not lighter exactly, but with the particular edge that meant she was about to say something that would either make Angela laugh or make her choke. "Angela, I need you to promise me something." "What, Mama?" "Promise me I will not go to jail. Because if I see that man, I am going to hit him with my Bible. And it is a large print Bible, Angela. King James. Hardcover. That thing weighs 4 pounds. They will have to charge me with assault with a religious weapon." Angela laughed. It sounded broken and wet and painful, but it was real. And sometimes a real laugh in the middle of the worst night of your life is the only thing that keeps you breathing until morning. Here is what she learned about financial betrayal and she wished someone had told her this years ago. Most women do not discover it until they are already divorced and broke. If you are married, know your accounts, all of them, not just the ones your spouse shows you. Pull credit reports annually, check business filings, understand where every dollar goes. It is not distrust, it is protection, because the person you trust most is the person most capable of destroying you. Angela spent the next 3 days working with a forensic accountant, tracing money through shell companies and offshore accounts. Each discovery was worse than the last. Julian had created an elaborate maze designed to make the money disappear by the time anyone thought to look. But mazes have maps if you are patient enough to draw them. And Angela was very, very patient. Then on a Friday morning, something unexpected happened. Angela checked her private email, the account Julian did not know about. One new message sat in her inbox from an address she did not recognize. Subject line: "He is doing it to you too." Angela stared at the screen. Then she opened it. Inside were scanned documents, hotel receipts, a photograph of Julian at a restaurant, leaning across a candlelit table toward a woman who was not Lydia. A young woman, blonde, smiling at him the way Angela used to smile at him, with total, innocent trust. A third woman. Angela pushed back from the desk and stared at the ceiling. Then she did something she did not expect. She laughed. Not from humor, from the sheer, breathtaking absurdity of it all. Her husband was not just having an affair. He was not just planning a secret wedding. He was running a franchise of deception. She half expected to find a loyalty rewards program. Buy 9 lies, get the 10th free. But who had sent the email? Derek Hale traced it within 24 hours. The sender was Brenda Walsh, Julian's executive assistant of 7 years, a quiet woman in her 50s who wore reading glasses on a beaded chain and kept a small cactus on her desk named Gerald. Brenda had discovered Julian's schemes gradually over the past year and had been quietly collecting evidence, horrified but paralyzed by fear. Julian had made it clear, casually but unmistakably, that anyone who crossed him would never work in Atlanta again. Angela met Brenda at a coffee shop in Decatur, far from Julian's usual territory. Brenda arrived with her hands wrapped tight around a ceramic mug, eyes darting to the door every few seconds. "I should have said something sooner," Brenda whispered. "I am so sorry. But he threatened to blacklist me. I am 53 years old. I cannot start over." Angela studied her carefully. "Why now?" Brenda's eyes filled with tears. "Because last week, he asked me to notarize a document. A fake divorce decree. He looked me in the eye and said, 'Brenda, Angela and I separated months ago. This is just paperwork to make it official.' And I knew it was a lie. I watched you bring him lunch that same afternoon. You were wearing a yellow dress. You brought him the turkey sandwich he likes, extra pickles, and he smiled at you like everything was normal." Brenda slid a USB drive across the table. "Everything is on there," she said. 3 years of emails, transfer records, meeting schedules with Lydia and the other one. Her name is Kayla Bennett. She is 24, an intern at the company. She thinks Julian is single. He told her he has never been married. Angela took the USB drive and held it in her palm. It weighed almost nothing. It contained everything. Sometimes your ally is someone you never expected. Brenda was not Angela's friend. She was her husband's employee. But she had something Julian never counted on: a conscience. Never underestimate the power of someone else's integrity when the people closest to you have none. The first catastrophe arrived disguised as a miracle. Angela had been feeling off for days. Headaches that would not quit. Nausea that came in waves. Exhaustion that sleep could not fix. She blamed stress because what else could it be? Her body was simply reflecting the chaos of her life. But Mrs. Cross insisted she see a doctor. You need to be in perfect health for what is coming, the lawyer said. Courts notice everything. So Angela went. Routine visit, blood work, standard tests. The doctor came back into the room with an expression Angela could not read. Mrs. Morrison, she said slowly, you are pregnant. The room went completely silent. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to stop humming. 8 weeks, the doctor continued. Everything looks healthy. Angela stared at her. She and Julian had been trying for children for years. They had seen specialists. They had endured disappointments. She had quietly, privately, given up hope. And now, when her entire world was collapsing, when she was preparing to destroy the man she had married, when every decision she made carried legal and financial weight, now her body decided to create life. She drove home in a daze, parked in the driveway, sat in the car for 30 minutes. She put her hand on her stomach and tried to feel something clear. Joy, fear, anger, anything singular. But it was all of it at once, mixed together like paint colors that should not touch, creating something murky and overwhelming. She called Mama Ruth. Her mother cried, not softly, deep, genuine, complicated tears. That baby is your blessing, Mama Ruth said fiercely, once she could speak. Not his leverage, not a bargaining chip, not a reason to stay, and not a reason to leave. Your blessing. You make every decision based on what is best for you and that child. You hear me? Yes, ma'am. I sat in that doctor's office and felt every plan I had made crack down the middle. I could not just think about myself anymore. Every decision, legal, financial, emotional, now had a heartbeat attached to it. And that changed everything. She told no one else. Not Mrs. Cross, not Derek. She was not ready for the pregnancy to become a legal variable, not yet. The second catastrophe came 9 days later. Julian arrived home on a Wednesday evening with a different energy. Angela felt it the moment he walked through the door. He was alert, watchful. His eyes moved across the room in a way they never did, scanning surfaces, lingering on her laptop, pausing on her phone. Angela, he said casually, dropping his keys on the counter. Has anyone come by the house lately? Anyone unusual? Her heart rate spiked, but her face remained perfectly calm. Number, why? Is everything okay? Julian studied her for a long, terrifying moment. His eyes searched hers the way a detective searches a suspect's. Angela held his gaze without blinking. Then he smiled. Just some corporate security stuff, he said. Nothing to worry about. But it was everything to worry about. Derek confirmed it the next morning. Julian's personal security consultant had identified surveillance activity near 2 of the locations where Julian met Lydia. They had not traced it back to Derek yet, but Julian was spooked. He had changed passwords, swept his car for tracking devices, started using a burner phone. And worst of all, he moved the secret wedding date up by 3 weeks. Angela's carefully constructed timeline shattered like glass. She called Mrs. Cross with genuine fear in her voice for the first time. He knows something, not everything, but something, and he is accelerating. Mrs. Cross was quiet for 1 beat. Then she said, with the calm of a woman who had fought 100 wars, then we accelerate faster. But the third catastrophe was the one Angela never saw coming. It arrived through her phone on a Sunday evening, Lydia's name on the screen. Angela answered warily. Lydia was crying. Not the performative tears Angela had grown suspicious of, but genuine, panicked sobbing. Angela, I need to tell you something, Lydia gasped between breaths. I have been a terrible person. I have been so terrible. Angela's pulse hammered. Was this it? Was Lydia about to confess everything? Julian and I, Lydia started. We have been... Angela gripped the phone so hard her knuckles went white. She waited. The silence stretched. But Lydia did not confess the affair. Julian told me he found out you are seeing a divorce lawyer, Lydia said instead. He is furious, Angela. He is saying he is going to drain every account tonight and leave the country by Friday. I just wanted to warn you, because I care about you. The lie was transparent. Lydia knew about the divorce lawyer, because Julian had told her directly, because they talked about Angela the way people talk about obstacles. But the information underneath the lie was real. Julian knew about the lawyer. Maybe not the investigation, maybe not the evidence, but he knew Angela was preparing to leave. And he was going to run. Thank you, Lydia, Angela said, her voice perfectly steady. You are a real friend. She hung up and stared at the wall for exactly 1 minute. Then she called Mrs. Cross. We have 48 hours, Angela said. Maybe less. That night was the lowest point. Angela sat alone in her dark living room while Julian slept upstairs, oblivious to the war being waged beneath his own roof. Everything was falling apart simultaneously. She was pregnant with the child of a man who was trying to destroy her. Her timeline was shattered. Julian might flee the country with everything her family had built. She put her hand on her stomach and whispered into the darkness, I do not know if I can do this. The house was silent. The shadows did not answer. Then her phone buzzed. A text from Mama Ruth sent at 11:47 at night. Baby, I know it is late, but I could not sleep. I just want you to know, no matter what happens tomorrow, you are not alone. You are never alone. Angela read the message 3 times. Then she stood up, turned on the lights, opened her laptop. Giving up was not an option. Not because she was brave, because she was pregnant, and that child deserved a mother who fought, not one who folded. Mrs. Evelyn Cross had not become the most feared divorce attorney in Georgia by being cautious. She had earned that reputation by being fast when speed mattered and patient when patience was a weapon. This situation called for speed. In 48 hours, Angela's legal team executed a plan that would have taken most firms 2 weeks. Mrs. Cross filed emergency motions with 3 different courts simultaneously. A judge reviewed the evidence of financial fraud and issued an expedited order freezing every account connected to Julian Morrison, joint accounts, business accounts, and the offshore entities Brenda's evidence had revealed. The freeze hit Julian's world like a power outage in a hospital. Everything stopped. His credit cards declined at a business lunch. His wire transfer to the Savannah wedding venue bounced. His attempt to access the offshore accounts returned an error message that made his face go gray, according to Brenda, who watched from her desk with Gerald the cactus as her only witness. But Mrs. Cross was not finished. She served Julian with divorce papers at his office. Not at home, where he could rage in private, at his office, where his staff could see, where the receptionist's eyes went wide, where 2 junior associates suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere, where Brenda accepted the documents from the process server with a perfectly neutral expression and placed them on Julian's desk beside his morning coffee. Julian called Angela 45 minutes later. His voice was a sound she had never heard from him before. Controlled fury mixed with genuine terror. What did you do? Angela's response was delivered in a tone so calm it could have been a weather forecast. What you are going to do to me, she replied. Except legally. Julian sputtered. Angela, this is insane. You froze my accounts. My accounts. Do you understand what you have done? I understand perfectly, she said. I also understand that $1.4 million of company money was moved to entities I have never heard of. I understand that you forged a divorce decree. I understand that you plan to marry another woman while still married to me. So, yes, Julian, I understand exactly what I have done. The line went quiet. She could hear his breathing, rapid and shallow. "We can talk about this," he said, voice suddenly shifting to the soft, reasonable tone she now recognized as his most dangerous weapon. "Baby, please, just come to the office. We will sit down. We will figure this out." Angela looked out her kitchen window at the garden she had planted 3 springs ago. Roses, hydrangeas, lavender, everything she had put into this home, everything she had grown. "No," she said. "We will figure this out in court." She hung up. And for 48 hours, Angela believed she had won. The accounts were frozen. The evidence was filed. Julian was cornered. Mrs. Cross reviewed the case and used a word she rarely used. "Airtight," she said. Angela called Mama Ruth with something approaching genuine relief. "I think it is over, Mama." Mama Ruth paused for exactly 1 second too long. "Mm-hmm. You do not sound convinced. Baby, the snake is not dead just because you stepped on its tail." Angela did not understand the warning. Not yet. 2 days later, Julian's attorney filed an emergency countermotion. Angela sat in Mrs. Cross's office, reading the document, and with every line, the temperature in the room dropped. Julian's lawyer was not arguing that the financial evidence was wrong. He was not contesting the affair. He was not even denying the secret wedding plans. Instead, the motion claimed that Angela Morrison was mentally unstable. The filing included detailed therapy records from a licensed psychiatrist documenting months of sessions in which Angela allegedly displayed paranoid ideation, delusional thinking, obsessive behavior, and emotional instability so severe that she was deemed unfit to manage her own financial affairs. Angela read the psychiatrist's name at the bottom of the page and felt the room tilt. Dr. Patricia Chambers, Lydia's mother, the woman who had hugged Angela at college graduation. The woman who had sent a card to Angela's wedding that read, "Welcome to our family, sweetheart." The woman who had sat at Angela's Thanksgiving table, eating Mama Ruth's peach cobbler, complimenting the Madagascar vanilla, while her daughter sat across the table wearing Angela's grandmother's stolen ring. Lydia's mother had forged psychiatric records to have Angela declared mentally incompetent. Angela set the document down on Mrs. Cross's desk very carefully, as if it might detonate. When she saw that name on the document, she understood something she had been too naive to see. This was not just Julian and Lydia. This was a family operation. Mother and daughter, working in coordination with her husband, had planned her destruction as casually as planning a dinner party. She was not a person to them. She was an obstacle, a problem to be solved. Mrs. Cross's face was grim. "If the judge accepts these records," she said slowly, "everything changes. The account freeze could be reversed. Your protective orders could be vacated. And with a finding of mental instability on record, Julian's lawyers could argue that you are unfit for custody." The word custody hit Angela like a physical blow. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. Mrs. Cross noticed the gesture. Her eyes sharpened. "Angela, is there something you need to tell me?" Angela closed her eyes. Then she told her lawyer about the pregnancy. The room was very quiet for a very long time. "We have 72 hours, Ms. Cross said finally. "If we cannot prove those records are forged before the hearing, Julian does not just walk away with the money. He walks away with an argument to take your child." Angela looked at her lawyer, at the document on the desk, at her own hands, steady despite everything. "Then what are we waiting for?" she said. Angela spent the next 3 days sleeping 4 hours a night, fueled by determination and the kind of quiet, focused rage that does not scream but builds walls. The psychiatric records were convincing. Dr. Patricia Chambers was a licensed, board-certified psychiatrist with 30 years of practice. Her letterhead was real. Her credentials were impeccable. The session notes were detailed, filled with clinical language and diagnostic codes that looked authentic to anyone who did not know the truth. But lies, no matter how professionally constructed, have seams. And Angela was very good at finding seams. She started with dates. The forged records claimed Angela had attended therapy sessions on 12 specific dates over the past 6 months. Mrs. Cross's paralegal began cross-referencing those dates with Angela's actual whereabouts. The first crack appeared within hours. 3 of the alleged session dates fell during a design conference in Chicago that Angela had attended with 40 other professionals. She had photos with timestamps, hotel receipts, conference registration records, airline boarding passes. She was 700 miles away on the dates those sessions supposedly occurred. The second crack came from technology. Angela's phone records and GPS data, pulled with court authorization, showed her location on every single alleged session date. Not one of them placed her within 50 miles of Dr. Chambers' office. The third crack was human. Brenda Walsh. Angela met Brenda again, this time in Mrs. Cross's office. Brenda arrived looking pale and nervous, but set her jaw with a determination that reminded Angela of Mama Ruth. He met with Dr. Chambers, Brenda said, 3 times in the past 2 months. I scheduled the appointments myself. He told me they were meetings with a potential investor named Patricia Chase, but I checked the visitor log after the last meeting. The signature was Patricia Chambers. Same person, different name. Brenda placed printed emails on the desk. In one, Julian discussed payment for professional consultation services to Dr. Chambers' practice. The amount was $50,000, routed through one of the same shell companies he had used to hide stolen funds. He paid Lydia's mother $50,000 to forge my psychiatric records, Angela said. Not as a question. Brenda nodded. There was also Kayla Bennett, the third woman, the 24-year-old intern who believed Julian was single. Angela had debated whether to contact Kayla. It felt cruel. The girl was a victim too, manipulated by the same man who had manipulated all of them. But Mrs. Cross was firm. Every witness strengthened the case. Angela called Kayla herself. She believed Kayla deserved to hear the truth from a real person, not a process server. The silence after Angela identified herself lasted nearly 10 seconds. Then Kayla said, voice barely above a whisper, "He told me he had never been married." Angela replied gently, "He has been married to me for 12 years. The sound Kayla made was not crying exactly. It was the sound of a reality rearranging itself violently. The gasp of someone realizing the floor they have been standing on was never solid. They met the next day. Kayla was young, intelligent, and devastated. She sat across from Angela with mascara smudged under her eyes and a coffee she never drank, growing cold between her hands. "I feel so stupid," Kayla said. Angela shook her head. "You are not stupid. You were lied to by someone who is very good at lying. That is not a reflection of your intelligence. It is a reflection of his character." Kayla looked up. "Aren't you angry at me?" Angela considered the question honestly. "No," she said, "I am angry at him. You did not know about me. Lydia did. There is a difference." Kayla's jaw tightened. "I will testify," she said. "Whatever you need. He does not get to do this to people." Within 72 hours, Angela's legal team had assembled a counter-filing so devastating that Mrs. Cross allowed herself a rare, thin smile as she reviewed it. Phone records. Proving Angela's location on the dates of alleged sessions, GPS data. Conference attendance records with photographs. Financial records showing Julian's $50,000 payment to Dr. Chambers. Emails discussing the arrangement. Brenda's sworn testimony about the meetings. Kayla's statement proving Julian's pattern of identity fraud and deception. And one more thing. Mrs. Cross had filed a formal complaint with the Georgia State Medical Board against Dr. Patricia Chambers for fraudulent psychiatric documentation. A criminal referral for conspiracy to commit fraud was simultaneously forwarded to the district attorney's office. Angela signed the final document and set down the pen. Mrs. Cross looked at her across the desk. "You know," she said in her dry, measured way, "in 27 years of practice, I have seen people fight with money, with rage, with threats, and with tears. I have never seen someone fight with patience the way you have." Angela almost smiled. "I learned it from my grandmother. She used to say, 'The river does not fight the rock. It just keeps flowing until the rock is smooth.'" Mrs. Cross nodded. "Well," she said, "I think your river just hit the rock." Despite everything, Julian pushed forward with the wedding. This baffled Angela at first. His accounts were frozen. His fraud was documented. His divorce was filed. How could he possibly believe a secret ceremony would still work? Mrs. Cross explained it simply. Desperate people do desperate things. He thinks if he marries Lydia and they leave the country before the hearing, he can contest everything from overseas. He is wrong. But desperation does not check with lawyers first. The date was set. A small chapel on Tybee Island, just outside Savannah. Saturday afternoon. Limited guest list, fewer than 20 people, all from Lydia's side. Julian's world had shrunk so dramatically that he could not fill a single pew with people who still trusted him. Angela, Mrs. Cross, and Derek Hale coordinated with local law enforcement in Savannah. Warrants were prepared. Officers were briefed. The plan was clinical in its precision. 2 days before the ceremony, Angela boarded a flight alone. Julian believed she was attending a charity retreat. She carried only a small suitcase and a leather folder that held months of quiet preparation. From her hotel room, across the road from the chapel, Angela watched the rehearsal through the window as evening light turned the coastal sky orange and pink. Lydia stood at the altar in a white sundress, laughing, practicing her walk, adjusting an imaginary veil. Julian held her hands, smiling in a way Angela once believed was reserved exclusively for her. They looked happy, genuinely happy, like two people about to begin a beautiful life together. The sight hurt, not with the sharp, screaming pain of the first discovery. This was different. This was the dull, deep ache of watching something you once trusted be given away to someone else, like seeing your childhood home repainted by strangers. Angela allowed herself to feel it fully. Then she closed the curtain, turned from the window, and reviewed the plan one final time. She slept deeply that night for the first time in weeks. Saturday morning arrived bright and cruelly beautiful. Clear sky. Warm breeze off the Atlantic. The kind of day people specifically choose for love stories. Angela dressed in a simple black dress. Elegant, understated. In the mirror, she saw not a victim, not a villain, but a woman about to close a chapter with the same precision she used to design a room. Every element in its place, every line intentional. She arrived at the chapel early and sat in the last row. The pews were wooden and worn, warmed by sunlight streaming through the stained glass. Flowers lined the aisle, white roses and baby's breath, and Angela wondered briefly if Lydia had chosen them because they were beautiful or because they were the same flowers from Angela's own wedding. Guests filtered in quietly. Lydia's extended family, a few friends. Dr. Patricia Chambers sat in the front row wearing a lavender dress and a satisfied expression, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief like a proud mother in a movie. Julian stood at the altar in a charcoal suit, looking polished and confident. He did not see Angela. He was too busy being the version of himself that other people believed in. Music played, soft piano. Lydia appeared at the back of the chapel, and every head turned. She was beautiful. Angela could admit that without it hurting. Lydia walked down the aisle slowly, bouquet trembling slightly with excitement, eyes fixed on Julian with the kind of adoration that Angela recognized because she had once worn it herself. For a fraction of a second, Angela felt something unexpected. Pity. Not for herself, for Lydia. Because Lydia actually believed this was real. She believed Julian loved her, the way he had once appeared to love Angela. She did not yet understand that Julian's love was a performance he could deliver to any audience. The officiant began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Angela's heart beat steadily, not wildly, steadily. The ceremony proceeded through its familiar rhythms, readings, vows that Julian delivered with practiced sincerity. Lydia's voice shaking with genuine emotion as she recited hers. Then the officiant reached the words Angela had been waiting for. If anyone present knows of any reason why this couple should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace. Angela did not stand. She did not speak. She simply looked toward the side of the chapel and gave a small nod. 3 plainclothes officers rose from their seats simultaneously. They moved forward with quiet authority, badges visible but the voices low. Confusion rippled through the room like wind through tall grass. Julian turned. The color drained from his face in real time, like watching paint dissolve in water. The lead officer spoke calmly. Mr. Julian Morrison, you are being detained on suspicion of attempted bigamy, identity fraud, and financial deception. The bouquet slipped from Lydia's fingers and hit the floor. Angela stood. She walked forward slowly, each step grounded and deliberate. She passed the pews of stunned guests. She passed the fallen flowers. She passed the officiant, who had stepped back, with his hands raised in surrender. She stopped a few feet from Julian. His eyes were wide, disbelieving, searching her face for the woman who used to fold his laundry and smile. That woman was gone. You should have ended the call, Julian, Angela said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. The sentence hung in the chapel air like a bell that had been struck and would not stop ringing. Then she turned to Lydia, whose face was a mask of mascara and terror. You wore my grandmother's ring, Angela said quietly. You sat in my house and drank my tea. You texted me miss you while you were fitting your wedding dress. Lydia's lips trembled. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Angela looked past Lydia to the front row, where Dr. Patricia Chambers was attempting to stand quietly, gathering her purse, angling toward the side exit. Dr. Chambers? Angela said. The woman froze. The medical board received my complaint yesterday, and the district attorney received your payment records this morning. You might want to stay. The color left Patricia Chambers' face so fast she looked like a ghost in a lavender dress. Lydia's father, a stocky man with silver temples, who had been sitting beside his wife, looking proud and paternal, turned to Dr. Chambers with an expression of dawning horror. Patricia, he said, low and dangerous. What is she talking about? And the family imploded. The chapel emptied the way ere the leaves a punctured tire, unevenly, chaotically, with a sound like something vital escaping. Some guests rushed out with their eyes down, as if betrayal were contagious. Others froze in their seats, paralyzed by the collision of what they had expected and what was actually happening. Lydia's elderly aunt covered her mouth with both hands. A child in the third row asked loudly, Mommy, Why are the police here? And no one answered. Julian stood between two officers, wrists secured, his mouth opening and closing as if language itself had abandoned him. The man who had always known exactly what to say, who could charm a room with a handshake and close a deal with a smile, could not form a single coherent sentence. Lydia's bouquet lay on the floor. She stared at it for 1 second, then snapped her head toward Angela. "This is a mistake!" Lydia screamed, voice cracking. "This cannot be real. You are ruining my life." Angela did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Her silence had weight behind it. Lydia spun toward her father. "Daddy, listen. I can explain." Lydia's father was not looking at his daughter. He was looking at his wife. "Patricia," he repeated, and his voice had the terrible quiet of a man whose entire understanding of his family was rearranging in real time. "What did you do?" Dr. Patricia Chambers, 30 years of professional composure crumbling in seconds, began to cry. "Richard, please, it is not what it sounds like." "Then what is it?" he demanded. "Because that woman just said you forged medical records, in front of witnesses, in front of police. I was helping our daughter," Patricia snapped, desperation making her reckless. She deserved happiness. Julian said his wife was cold, controlling, that she would take everything. Richard Chambers looked at his wife as if seeing her for the first time. "So you committed a crime," he said. "You risked your medical license, your reputation, our family's name, because a married man told you a story and you believed him?" Patricia's mouth opened. Nothing useful came out. Julian's voice cut through the chaos. "Angela, Angela, please. Please do not do this here." Angela turned to him with the calm of deep water. "I did not do anything here," she said. "You did." Julian's face contorted. "Angela, I can explain. I was confused. I was under pressure. The business, everything, I just—" "Stop blaming pressure for choices you enjoyed making," Angela replied. The sentence landed with surgical precision. Julian's jaw worked, but no sound came out. Lydia lurched forward, nearly tripping on her dress. "You planned this," she spat at Angela. "You set him up. You are jealous and bitter, and you cannot stand that he chose me." Angela gave Lydia her first direct look since the ceremony began. It was not hateful. It was clinical. "You wore my grandmother's ring," Angela said. "The same ring you complimented when I wore it. The same ring you asked about. You recognized it on your own hand and said nothing. And you call me bitter?" Something flickered in Lydia's eyes. Shame, maybe. Just for half a second. Then it disappeared, under panic. "Julian told me you two were done," Lydia snapped, grabbing at any story. "He said you were separating. He said you were cold and controlling, and—" Julian's head jerked toward Lydia. "Shut up!" he hissed through clenched teeth. "No," Lydia cried, tears streaming. "You said you were divorcing her. You said she did not care about you. You said—" The officers tightened their grip on Julian gently but firmly. "Sir, you need to remain calm." Julian's voice rose to a pitch Angela had never heard. "She is lying. Lydia, stop talking." Angela watched the two of them turn on each other with the quiet observation of someone watching a fire she did not start. Mrs. Cross stepped forward beside Angela with the smooth authority of someone entering a room she owned. She introduced herself to the lead officer and confirmed paperwork. The system moved in calm professional steps. Names were checked, documents were transferred, statements were taken. Julian tried one final time. His voice dropped to something small and desperate. "Angela, please, just let me explain. Just give me 5 minutes." Angela stepped closer, just enough for him to see her eyes clearly. "You can explain in court," she said. "If you want to explain anything to me personally, explain why you thought I deserved to be fooled, robbed, and erased." Julian swallowed. I was confused, he whispered. Angela's expression did not change. No, she said. You were organized. That single word hit harder than any legal document. Julian's face collapsed, as if the sentence had reached into his chest and removed every excuse he had spent months constructing. The officers began leading him toward the side door. As they moved, Lydia tried to follow, crying, dress dragging on the chapel floor, voice raw with desperation. "Julian!" she screamed. "Julian, do not leave me!" He did not look back. Not once. The irony was almost poetic. He was leaving Lydia exactly the way he had planned to leave Angela, without a backward glance, without a moment of consideration. The only difference was, this time, he did not get to choose. Outside, the coastal air was warm and indifferent. The ocean did not care about broken vow. The seagulls did not pause for shattered families. The sun continued its slow descent as if nothing extraordinary had happened in the little chapel on Tybee Island. Angela walked down the chapel steps slowly, not in triumph, in release. Mrs. Cross matched her pace. "We will proceed with the next filings immediately," she said. "I want the psychiatric fraud charges prioritized." Angela nodded. They drove back to the hotel in silence. Angela watched the coastal landscape scroll past the window. The marsh grass bending in the wind, the bridges arching over tidal creeks. She felt tired, not the exhaustion of defeat, the bone-deep tiredness of a long battle approaching its end. Back at the hotel, her phone rang, Julian's number. She let it ring until it stopped. No shaking, no tears, just quiet, unwavering choice. Lydia showed up at Angela's hotel the next morning. Not the Lydia who had walked down the aisle in white, glowing with stolen joy. This was a different version. Swollen eyes, hair in a messy twist, a crumpled sweater replacing the wedding dress. She looked like someone who had been awake all night arguing with reality and losing. Angela agreed to see her. 5 minutes. In the hallway. Not the room. Lydia flinched when Angela opened the door, as if expecting a scream. Angela did not scream. She leaned against the wall and said one word. "Talk." "I did not know it would go like that," Lydia whispered. "I did not know he was still with you. He told me you were separating. He told me you were cold. He told me." "Lydia," Angela said quietly, and Lydia stopped mid-sentence. "You sat in my living room and watched me fold laundry while you were planning a wedding with my husband. Even if his story were true, you did not think to ask me? You did not think to confirm anything with your best friend?" Lydia stared at the carpet. "I was stupid," she said. "No," Angela corrected. "You were selfish." Lydia's face crumpled. "I loved him," she said, like it was a defense. Angela's voice stayed calm but sharpened. "You loved what he promised you. A new life paid for by the one you were willing to destroy." Lydia's breath caught. "I did not take any money," she insisted quickly. Angela's gaze turned flat. "You wore my ring." A long silence. Then Lydia whispered, "Okay. I knew. I knew it was your grandmother's ring. I recognized it." Angela nodded once, not in forgiveness, in acknowledgement of truth finally being spoken. Lydia took a shaky step forward. "Angela, please. Can we fix this? Our friendship?" Angela studied her for a long moment, searching for the girl she had once trusted, the girl who had held her hair back during a college stomach flu, the girl who had driven 4 hours in the rain to be at Angela's grandmother's funeral. That girl was gone. Or maybe she had never really existed. "Lydia," Angela said softly, "you did not break a plate. You broke trust. That is not something you glue back together and pretend the cracks are not there." Mrs. Cross appeared in the doorway behind Angela. "Miss Chambers," she said calmly, "any cooperation you provide now will be documented and may be relevant to your legal situation." Lydia's eyes darted between them. "I do not want to go to jail," she blurted. "Then tell the truth," Angela replied. And Lydia did. In a written statement, Witnessed and signed, she detailed everything: Julian's planning, the forged divorce papers he had shown her, the timeline for leaving the country, her mother's involvement in fabricating psychiatric records, the shell companies, the fake names. She provided everything not because she was brave, but because she was cornered. But the truth served the same purpose, regardless of its motivation. After Lydia left with Mrs. de Cross's paralegal, Angela sat by the window and looked at the ocean. The sun was high, and the water sparkled with a beauty that felt almost disrespectful, given the morning she had just survived. The following weeks were not glamorous. Healing rarely is. It was paperwork and meetings, and the quiet ache that showed up in unexpected moments. Reaching for 2 mugs out of habit, hearing a song Julian used to play while cooking, finding one of his ties in the back of a closet and standing there holding it for 3 minutes before dropping it in a donation bag. Those moments came like sudden weather. Angela did not pretend they did not exist. She just did not let them drive. The legal process moved forward with Mrs. Cross's characteristic efficiency. Dr. Patricia Chambers was formally investigated by the Georgia Medical Board. Her license was suspended pending review. Criminal fraud charges were filed. Richard Chambers, upon learning the full extent of his wife's involvement, filed for separation. Lydia cooperated fully with prosecutors. She and Angela never spoke again. Julian's attorney eventually stopped fighting and started negotiating. The evidence was overwhelming. The forensic accounting revealed a total of $1.7 million in misappropriated funds. The attempted bigamy charge alone carried significant legal consequences. Julian accepted a plea arrangement: financial restitution, criminal record, complete forfeiture of any claim to Morrison Development Group, no access to company assets. Angela received sole ownership of the marital home, full repayment of diverted funds, and a court order ensuring the return of all personal property, including one specific item. On a quiet Thursday afternoon, Angela drove to the police station in Atlanta. An officer led her to a small office where an evidence bag sat on a desk. Inside, her grandmother's ring caught the fluorescent light and threw tiny rainbows on the ceiling. Angela stared at it for a long moment, not because she was overwhelmed by jewelry, because it represented something older and stronger than Julian Morrison. Heritage, sacrifice, the kind of love that survives generations. Her grandmother's hands had held this ring through decades of struggle and joy, and she had passed it to Angela with a whisper that now felt like prophecy. This is for the woman you become, not the man you marry. Angela slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been waiting. At the company, Angela stabilized operations with the same calm efficiency she had brought to every other phase of this nightmare. She walked into the first board meeting after Julian's departure, wearing a cream blouse and black trousers, hair pulled back, expression neutral. The conference room was tense. Julian's empty chair sat like a gap in the air. "Good morning," Angela said. "We are going to stabilize operations and move forward. I am not here to discuss the past. I am here to build the future." A ripple of relief moved through the room. People liked certainty. They liked knowing someone was in charge who would not crumble. She started a mentorship program, not a flashy corporate initiative with branding and press releases, just a weekly session for young women in the firm: financial literacy, negotiation skills, boundary setting. On the first day, 12 women showed up in a conference room, unsure if they belonged. Angela stood at the front and spoke without theatrics. "No one is coming to protect your future the way you will," she told them. "So learn your finances. Know your worth. Set boundaries that people feel, not just hear. And if someone tells you that you are paranoid for protecting yourself, that is usually the person you need protection from. The women listened like thirsty soil receiving rain. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning that felt surprisingly calm. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just a judge reading terms, a clerk stamping documents, and a marriage becoming a closed file. Angela walked out of the courthouse and stood on the steps, letting the Atlanta sunlight hit her face. She was 6 months pregnant now, showing in a way that made strangers smile at her and hold doors open. Mrs. Cross adjusted her bag beside her. "You did well," the lawyer said. Angela shook her head gently. "You did well?" Mrs. Cross allowed herself a small, rare smile. "You followed through," she said. "Most people do not. Many people threaten boundaries. Very few enforce them. You enforced every single one." Angela understood what she meant. She had learned that boundaries are not walls you build to keep people out. They are lines you draw to show yourself where your own worth begins. And the moment you stop enforcing them is the moment everyone else stops respecting them too. That evening, Angela cooked dinner for herself. Simple food, a clean kitchen. The house smelled like garlic and rosemary and something that might have been peace. She ate at the dining table without the old heaviness of forced normalcy. She did not pretend to be happy. She simply was, or close enough that the difference did not matter. Her two closest friends, Tara and Aoife, came by after dinner. They sat in the living room with tea and the kind of comfortable silence that only real friendship allows. Tara watched Angela stir her cup absently and finally spoke. "Do you ever feel like you are supposed to be more broken than you are?" Angela considered the question. "I was broken," she said. "The moment I heard that call, something in me shattered. I just did not advertise it. I did not make my pain a performance. I made it a foundation." Aoife leaned forward. "Sometimes I want to scream for you," she admitted. "At him, at Lydia, at all of it." Angela shook her head. "Screaming would not change what he did," she said. "Building does." They sat together as night settled over the house, three women in a living room that had seen both the worst and best of what life could deliver. The silence between them was not empty. It was honest. Later, after her friends left, Angela stood at the bedroom window and looked out at the street. The same view she had had for years. But it looked different now. It looked like hers. She put her hand on her stomach. The baby moved, a small, insistent kick, as if to say, "I am here. We are here." Angela smiled, not at the night, not at the memory of what she had survived. At the future she could almost see forming in the darkness beyond the window. Her phone rang at 9:07, unknown number. She stared at it for a moment. She almost let it go. But something, not hope, not curiosity, maybe just the desire for one final period, at the end of a very long sentence, made her answer. "Hello?" A pause, then a familiar inhale. "Angela," Julian said softly. His voice sounded small, unfamiliar, like a building after the scaffolding has been removed, revealing how little structure was actually there. "I have been calling," he continued. "I did not think you would answer." Angela sat on the edge of her bed, hand resting on her stomach. "What do you want, Julian?" He exhaled like he had been holding his breath for months. "I miss you. I miss our life." "Our life does not exist anymore," Angela replied. Julian's tone tightened, a thread of the old frustration slipping through like a crack in a mask. "You always talk like it is a contract," he said. "Like feelings do not matter." Angela gave a small, quiet laugh. Not amused, just clear. "Feelings mattered when you were planning another wedding," she said. "Did mine matter then?" Silence. Then the softer approach, the one she recognized as his last weapon. "I made mistakes," he whispered. "I was stupid. I was selfish. I did not realize what I had until the consequences arrived," Angela finished. Julian's voice cracked. I lost everything, Angela. The business, the people, even Lydia. She disappeared. Do not blame Lydia, Angela said. You recruited her. You built the lie. You let it grow until it consumed everything. And now you want to blame the people you dragged into it. His breathing became heavier, a mix of anger and something that might have been genuine grief. So you are just going to leave me like this? He demanded. I am not leaving you, Angela replied calmly. I already left, Julian tried one last time. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I still love you. Angela paused, not because the words moved her, but because she recognized how easily words could be used as tools. She had spent 12 years believing that words and intentions were the same thing. They were not. Words were free. Actions cost something, and Julian had never been willing to pay. Love without respect is just possession, she said. Just meet me once, he pleaded. Let me look at you. Let me explain everything properly. Angela leaned back slightly. Julian, you had years to speak honestly. You chose secrecy. You chose lies. You chose to plan a whole future where I did not exist. And now you want 5 minutes to explain? You do not need 5 minutes with me. You need 5 years with yourself. A long silence. She could hear him swallowing, struggling. So that is it, he said. His voice was thin, defeated. That is it, Angela confirmed. His tone shifted one final time. The vulnerability had not worked, so bitterness emerged like an animal from a cage. You think you are better than me now? He muttered. You think you are some kind of hero. Angela's face did not change. She looked at her reflection in the dark window, calm, present, whole. I do not think I am a hero, she replied. I think I am a woman who refused to be destroyed. A broken laugh from his end. You are cold, he said. No, Angela said. I am healed. There is a difference. A very long silence. Then Julian's voice, stripped of everything, small and raw. I do not know how to live with what I did. Angela looked toward the kitchen. The quiet proof of an ordinary evening. Clean dishes. A candle burning low. A house that finally felt like home again. You live with it by owning it, she said, not by trying to crawl back into the life you burned. Julian kept talking. Apologies, promises, the familiar choreography of a man who had always been able to talk his way out of consequences. But the words sounded hollow now, echoing in a space that no longer had room for them. Angela stood from the bed, walked to the window, watched the street lights glow outside, the same lights that had been there for years. But they looked different now, warmer, gentler, as if the whole neighborhood had shifted slightly to make room for who she was becoming. She returned to the phone, picked it up. Julian, she said, I am going to hang up now, not because I hate you. I do not. I am hanging up because I finally love myself more than I love the idea of us. She ended the call, placed the phone face down on the nightstand. The house was quiet, but not empty, not lonely, just peaceful. She put her hand on her stomach one last time. The baby kicked, strong and certain, like a small fist knocking on a door, saying, I am ready. Are you? Angela smiled, not like someone who had won a war, like someone who had finally stepped out of a storm and realized the sky had been hers all along. She just had not been able to see it through the rain. She walked through the house slowly, turning off lights, checking locks, moving with the steady rhythm of a woman reclaiming her own space. In the bedroom, she changed the sheets, an ordinary act that felt like the closing line of a very long story. Before sleeping, she thought about what she would tell her child someday. Not about Julian, not about the betrayal, about what came after. She would say, I did not survive because I was strong. I survived because I refused to let someone else's choices become my identity. Your father chose betrayal. I chose myself. And that choice, that single, quiet, unglamorous choice, made all the difference. She would say, protect your heart, but do not lock it away. Trust people, but trust yourself first. And if anyone ever makes you question your own worth, remember that the answer was never in their hands. It was always in yours. Mama Ruth called one last time that evening. Just a quick check-in, the way mothers do when they sense the weather is finally clearing. Angela, you know what your grandmother would say if she could see you right now? Angela smiled into the phone. What, Mama? She would say. Baby, you kept the ring and the house. That is my girl, Angela laughed. A real, full, warm laugh that filled the quiet house and bounced off walls she had designed herself. Then she turned off the last light, climbed into bed, and slept better than she had in months. Outside, the Atlanta sky stretched wide and dark and full of stars. The world kept turning. Traffic hummed distantly. A neighbor's dog barked once and fell silent. Somewhere, Julian Morrison sat in a small apartment, staring at a wall, learning the shape of his own consequences. And somewhere else, in a house that smelled like rosemary and clean sheets, a woman who had been underestimated slept peacefully with her hand resting on the future, dreaming of nothing at all. Because she had finally stopped running from the past. The sky was hers. It had always been hers. She just had not known it yet. If this story moved you, please give it a like and share it so others can learn from it too. And remember, trust your instincts, protect your future, and never be afraid to walk away from someone who makes you question your worth. Do not forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. I will see you in the next one. All content on this channel is carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with real-life lessons. Every word is crafted with purpose, to entertain, to inspire, and to remind you that your worth is never defined by someone else's betrayal. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.